Today's episode of Poets at War is sponsored by the following. Imagine countless worlds before you. Fantasy and science fiction tales. Heroes charging gallantly into battle, heedless of win or fail. Upon the ancient steps of glory, a battle for time must be won. Join the characters from every realm as they seek the words, "Well done." Audio Adventures Podcast by Joshua David Ling, full of epic poetry, sure to make your heart sing. If you like listening to Rob Inglis read The Lord of the Rings, or Andrew Peterson read his Wingfeather Saga, you'll love Audio Adventures by Joshua David Ling. Visit joshuadavidling.com/audioadventures to listen.
Today on Poets at War, we talk to brothers Daniel and Aaron Reed about narrative play amongst homeschoolers, collaboration, and unifying worlds of fiction. You are about to enter the war zone. This is Poets at War.
There they are.
There we are. Yes. By the way, I haven't heard of your podcast at all except from him, and he hasn't showed it to me, so I have no idea what's going on.
That's fine. I'll be explaining it. I'll tell you this much: it's extremely casual. It might technically be starting now. I'm not even sure. I figured that out in post. So it's not like 3, 2, 1, go. It's not the question answer. It's not whatever. I think we've talked before on Facebook. I obviously Daniel and I have.
Obviously.
What's your name again?
But I got rid of. I'm Aaron Reed. I may have talked to you,
Aaron.
but I got rid of my account last year. So,
Gotcha. I think I saw you. I met you for like a brief minute or two in the Brood, and then okay, gotcha. Yeah. Well, I'm Joshua.
I'm a lot taller.
Yeah, there you go.
He likes to point that out.
No, I think I'm a lot taller, and so I need. So if you want to see the top of my head, you need to push it back.
Framing.
But you don't need necessarily. Yes.
Yep.
And of course, we got the sirens going on. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not in the background, but that's one of the reasons I have a dynamic mic. I will check on that later. Anyway, so I decided to be in my backyard today. Basically, Aaron, this is Poets at War is the name of the podcast. The point of the podcast is to discuss basically your guys' places, whoever's the guest, and then there are some solo episodes of me, but those are of no concern to you at the moment. Basically asking you guys what your what your place is in the war on culture as artists, whatever it is you do. So I talk to all different types of Christian creators.
Culture War podcast.
Yep.
Yes, culture war and just generally speaking, art and theory and philosophy and how that all fits into worldview. So yeah. But that's what we do here. So I guess we could just start off by introducing each other. Daniel, I know you through the Brood, the One to Brood. So why don't you introduce yourself first, and then Aaron, you can go after that. Save the best for last, right? Wink, wink.
I am Daniel Reed. I kind of write here and there, kind of starting up and dealing with ADHD and whatnot. So that kind of in college and work, all that stuff, all that good stuff. I met the Brood through a Facebook group, the Role Makers. They're a little shout out there. Go check them out. And I'm just kind of here for the ride. And
you're at a very formative time of life. Yeah, a very formative time of life.
In a very Yeah, everything's kind of happening all at once right now. So this is kind of an interesting little spot I found myself in.
Yeah. I am his brother, 2 years younger than him, I believe.
Yes. This is Aaron.
Yes, I am Aaron. And I am also a writer. I am autistic, have OCD. Like him, I've been raised Christian all my life.
He ended up Catholic and I'm
Yes.
Protestant.
Yes, very recently.
Interesting little,
Very
interesting
recently.
little mix there.
And yeah, I've primarily written stories that have been that come from other siblings older than both of us.
Yeah. That's where the majority of our stuff comes from. It's like our shared family folklore.
Yes. But some other worlds have popped up besides.
Yeah.
And I'm also a musician. That's another thing I do.
So when you play or sing or sequence, or what do you do?
I sing and play the piano.
I gotcha.
Aaron and I are kind of complete opposites in a lot of ways, and other ways not so much. But I'm Protestant. He's Catholic. He's a musician. I'm going deaf.
I did not think of that as an opposite before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think that's enough introduction for me.
Yeah.
I gotcha. What do you play? What do you sequence or sing or just all of it? What do you do?
I only know the piano and how to sing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm not a polymusic.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I like to interpret for rap songs primarily because they're just so fun and fast. And
one day I'm gonna get you to do Magic by B.O.B. That one is fantastic. That's Rivers Cuomo from Weezer is like the hook. He sings the hook on the track.
I know Weezer.
Yeah. So he sings the hook, and it's like, I got the magic in me, and if I sing any more of this, it'll copyright something. I don't know. But yeah, you can check it out. It's really fast, really good stuff. Anything by B.O.B. really, I'd love to hear you do, because B.O.B. is a very technically sound
You'd
rapper.
love to see me do it.
Yes, absolutely. So did I say here?
Yeah, you did.
I am incredibly
you said here.
I am an incredibly audio centric person, but I tend to be more voice and words and poetry and that sort of a thing. Even though I do music, it's more in the vein of lyrics and poetry.
We'll have to team up.
Yep. I love rap, so why am I a musician?
Oh, that's another thing. Photography.
Well, actually, with math, a lot of people don't know this, but the term music didn't used to refer to what we really think of as music. What it meant was essentially clockwork.
But here's the thing: he did get it right. He did get it right. It's just
to him.
I said math.
I said math. M-A-P.
Yeah. Cartography. Close.
Oh, cartography.
But I also like math.
Well, there you go.
Like, you got it. Misheard me, but you still actually were talking about what I do.
Disconnect from good. We got redneck Wi-Fi, so it's kind of weak.
Yeah, I was noticing that a little bit, breaking up here and there. So we'll just muddle through and see how it does. So basically, finishing my thought, basically. It's cool. I got two little kids that go all crazy in the background sometimes. That's one reason I'm outside today. So like, it's all good. I don't worry about that. Family is family. That's all part of, so many people just, especially artists, just want to block everything out and just focus on the art. And I'm trying to embrace more and more, just like, this is God's world. Things are going to happen. It's all good. That's kind of the approach I'm trying to take too.
Yeah.
most of this. There's too much to worry about, to be worrying about someone you love bothering you while you're trying to focus on something way less important.
Right.
You know?
Like,
So yeah, so Daniel, you're trying to do the whole work-life balance craziness right now, with work and college and all kinds of other things. And one of your big passions lately has been doing TikToks and various things with your ASL, some pretty cool stuff like that. What really got you into that? I mean, obviously your deafness, but like, what is interesting to you specifically in regard to how it actually what got you interested in it, basically, you know?
Yeah. So my sister, one of our older sisters, we have a big homeschool family. There's 6 of us. The youngest one of my older sisters, we got into it just kind of on a whim, as us homeschoolers like to do, absorb knowledge and whatnot. And we just started learning together online using YouTube and whatnot. And while she eventually kind of trailed off, and then I just kept going. I was learning different songs and really started enjoying it. A few weeks later, she tried teaching us to sing a song, and then she realized I could not carry a tune at all. And she was like, "Are you going deaf? Like, what's going on? Let's get that checked out." Encouraged my mom. I figured out I was going deaf after I started learning sign language.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like God knew what I was going to need. It was pretty neat.
Yeah.
And then right around the same time, I had found, I gotten saved and gotten that relationship with Jesus, and all that crazy stuff was, going on in that time. And right around that same time, I realized there wasn't like any access to the gospel in the deaf community. Like the deaf community just don't really have it. It's like 98% unreached. And that just like, oh no, I gotta, like, you guys gotta come with me. Like, no, come on. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm learning as much as I can, and hopefully one of these days I'll establish a good outreach to the deaf community and kind of work them into all these circles that they're not really able to access right now, like literature and math, science, religion. There's really just not anything there. I'll try and look up signs for different like scientific concepts, and they're just not there. Or religious concepts, it's not there. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm just learning, and I want to, help those people out as much as I can, but kind of in a weird spot to do that right now.
I hear you. Well, I know both of y'all are very much into storytelling and structure and that sort of a thing, which is my wheelhouse as well. What kind of got you guys into that? I know homeschool family, you end up pretending together, coming up with stories, coming up with things in the backyard, and even maybe if you're sharing a room in bed, just verbally role playing at night, all that kind of stuff. I've been there, done that. So like, is that literally all there is to it, or like how did y'all's specifically blossom?
Well,
a lot of what you said.
I think it would be different for both of us on the specific stuff. So for me, I think it was that
this is Aaron talking,
obviously. Well, we don't have a name on here.
Well, yeah, but we introduced ourselves, and there will be a video version for anyone who's watching, and y'all's voices are different enough, I think, that people listening can tell, so we're good.
I'm deaf, so
I'm gonna get your transcriptions, don't worry.
Sounds good.
I started being interested in cartography at a really young age. I do not know why. I have no clue, but I do know that the first map I made of our family's fantasy world was basically a ripoff of North America. I remember that very clearly, though I do not have a single copy.
I don't remember that at all.
And basically, as I revised the map for the world, I ended up being the only one in our family that was really interested in it. So then I basically got into writing it because I was the only one interested. And then Dan got more interested later after he was writing more. But that's what kind of started me out, as well as the fact that I probably could read at a young age. But that's all. And for him now, oh no, he has something he has to do, so I have to keep talking.
Go ahead.
Okay. And so I guess oh man, I can't think of anything. I don't really know how to continue it because I did say all I needed to say for that part, what got me into writing. Yeah.
You're good. I just had a candy in my mouth and it was just like,
so did I, but I just swallowed.
You're good.
We're good. We're good. Yeah, Aaron got started kind of more into the world building because he's always been more of like logically minded. We had started playing growing up. We were coming up with ideas for
I remember your original comment.
Can you restate your question? I'm losing my train of thought.
Basically, I'm just trying to understand how this family world in particular, but also just y'all's interest in stories kind of started and blossomed. He explained from maps, so I think we pretty much got that. We didn't get your end of things. And then how did the family world come about is the thing after that. You first and then the family world.
Yeah. So I got into it really just kind of, I've always been fond of just asking speculative questions and getting into the minds of characters and that sort of thing. Excuse me. Sorry. I ate a caramel and it's just messing me up.
Caramel and podcasts, they do not mix.
No, I'll keep that in mind. But I got into it by asking I would ask, what if all the time growing up? What's this? What if that? And I just kept going and going and going. And it eventually expanded. And it's like, I was always a huge movie buff. And I eventually just asked the question, what if I was making movies? And then it's like, oh. And so I just started making those movies in my head and I wanted to share them with people. And that's kind of where it got started. And then the story world, that kind of came in. My oldest sister,
I can explain that because I really know this.
Yeah, but I mean, I can show her where it comes.
I'm sorry.
We're good.
Yeah, sorry.
We started playing it just as like a little game. We would go to the park, and it was in the same vein as like Bridge to Terabithia, Lord of the Rings, Narnia especially. We would don these personas of different characters that we'd make up. I was this little hobgoblin. I would dance around with a crossbow, shooting the goblins or whatever. The world is called Karatua. And this is actually the first time we're telling actual people about it. It's cool. It's called Karatua, and essentially we just had like this odyssey around this park. It was like a path around a lake. And that's kind of the core of it, is the path. You kind of go on the path on your mission and you're doing all these things and things are trying to lure you off of the path. And he was too little at the time to play it because it was creepy and sometimes. But once he got old enough, we'd all kind of moved on. But he had taken up the mantle of like, oh, I like these ideas, but I'm going to make them complex.
Can I show the map?
Stuff.
Well, this is,
I don't know if you can see it. You might be able to.
Put it up there. Yeah, there you go. A little bit of a glare, but yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, he's big into world building maps.
Yeah.
And so once he got into it, it really took off, and the rest of us can't really keep up anymore.
Yeah.
Because it started as just sort of we're gonna go fight the dragon. Let's go punch the witch in the face. That sort of silly, childish play.
Yeah, but the witch is divided into 3 different characters over time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now he can kind of talk about the story that he's kind of creating.
Yeah. So how this family story world originated. I believe the first when first time this story came into being was whenever my oldest sister was with her fiance or boyfriend at the time, but now husband, at a park, and she decided to tell him this story about two elves, one a king and the other the peasant, going on a path to save the peasant's uncle and healing him of a disease. And from there, she decided that this is going to be something that she's going to play with her siblings, her younger siblings. And so she brought her siblings on this journey and made new journeys with them until she got a bit old to do it. However, our youngest sister, still older than us, was able to do a second round of adventures with her cousins. And so they played these adventures called the Voyages, where they were in this goblin land and also a place called Apricot Island.
There's a whole mythology.
Yes, no, it's like
it keeps going.
And whenever she did those adventures with her cousins, she actually made the name Karatua for the world.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yes, because she was meeting an imaginary giant. I don't understand this connection, but she met an imaginary giant. She had a carrot in her hand. Then she looked at the giant, looked at the carrot, looked at the giant, and then said, "Oh, Karatua." I don't get it.
It came from a carrot.
Yes, it came from a carrot, but there's no carrots in it.
I honestly thought it had something to do with like.
Maybe we need to put carrots in there. No.
Okay, that's on you.
Yeah, that would be on me. And after that, those stories ended, but finally, our youngest sister, with me, Dan, and two friends, we played in the woods in our backyard and did a final set of adventures, which I eventually named Under Eden, which Eden's a major villain. So it's like kind of, the heroes kind of lost before the adventure started. So
yeah, I have fond memories of those.
So that's how it came about. And then,
his character was this elven prince that had lost his kingdom.
I don't think he was an elven prince whenever we were actually doing the story. But
this is my mental, what the story
and then after we got finished with that, because I was the only person that wanted to play, my character killed the main villain to finish off the story. And
narratively, two of the characters are two friends. They were basically angels.
Yeah, so it took a while to figure out what they were.
They were just doing their
I remember a lot about how the story has developed, and I could talk a lot about it. But once we get to the point where I take it up, I can say I took it up, developed it to where it is now, and it's a lot bigger. And then that's where it is. That's how the story came about.
Yeah, and then I started writing kind of off to the side, doing my own thing.
And then we unified the stories.
As I was going on, I was like, this could be part of the same realm. And so now we're writing kind of a conjoined universe.
We were both having the same ideas.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
So that's where we're at right now.
That sounds super fun. And that's something that a lot of people who end up more solitary. See, I grew up with that. I grew up with maybe not specific worlds. We were a little bit more jumping around in a lot of ways, and I tended to be the one with the bigger imagination than most of my siblings. Not all the time, but a good chunk. And I feel like my trying to get everyone together kind of pushed them away in some ways at certain times. And so I kind of ended up on my path and they ended up on theirs, and I'm more proud of them than I could ever be. They've done absolutely amazing in all that they do. Do we need to pause?
Oh, there's two of us. He can handle it.
That's okay. Yeah, tag team, and I like it. Anyway, so point being that with all of those things happening, I kind of got into where I was set to craft my worlds alone. And when I got married, I tried to, include my wife in on a lot of that stuff, but she loved my stories so much. She didn't want to have any influence over them. She didn't want them to get changed.
I've had the exact kinds of problems.
That's great.
Establishing relationships with people. I'm geared towards cooperation and working in a team with people, just bouncing off ideas. I love it.
Right.
But I tried doing that with the story I'm writing or trying to write, called The Immortal Saga.
Mm-hmm.
That's plural, possessive. And I was talking with a childhood friend for a long time, and we were kind of working together, but it eventually ended up kind of on my lap, and it was just my thing. So I understand where you're at completely in that regard. Like, it's just, you can't get on the same frequency with everyone.
Right. And it's not necessarily that, you know, a lot of people kind of have this view of, you know, artists want to be on their own. They want to be in their own place, whatever. I think that's absolutely, I think 90% of the time that's false. I think artists need other people, and they either know it from the beginning and then lose it. And as a rite of passage, they end up having to take up the torch themselves and figure it out on their own. And that's when they become a real artist, a real author, you know, that sort of thing. Or it's a case where they have had to make it up as they go from the beginning, and they don't know that they need people around them. And I think that's actually the more dangerous one in many cases. You know, at least you and I and Aaron, we were raised with sword brothers around us, you know, people who would help us carry the weight of creating all this stuff. But and not only that, but it becomes play so much quicker when there are more people. I had a friend. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say because once you're able to sort of bounce off of each other, when you start losing your train of thought or inspiration, someone else will just pick up and it'll just, you know, you just dance across the ideas, dance across the room so fluidly, and takes a lot of the burden off of you to just kind of, hey, what do you want to do with that? Oh, no. And you just kind of go back and forth like that. And that's great.
I had a friend named Chris that I met over the internet. He's still my friend. We don't talk as much, but he and I were fans of wrestling. I'm going to do a solo episode on wrestling at some point, pro wrestling. I'm not as into it as I used to be. That tends to happen, I find, but I love the form. I love the format of pro wrestling. I actually trained in pro wrestling for a little while. It's a fun, weird narrative world that a lot of people don't think about or tap. To me, it's a perpetual world of Rocky. Any which way, my friend and I, we got into go ahead.
Our 5-year-old niece loves wrestling. Mm-hmm. It's her like biggest thing. She loves it.
Yep. My friend and I, we met on a site that had a role-playing game. They're called eFeds for pro wrestling. It's sort of a narrative writing role-playing form that's pretty interesting. I'll probably do a whole episode on that too at some point. But basically,
and what was it called?
It's a form of game called eFedding or eFed, like Electronic Federation. So you can look it up. You'll find out there's various spin-offs of that too. But you know, it's basically you have a matchup for that week or that month for the next show, whatever it is, and you write your role play for the match, basically as a promo for your character. And then what's going on? And then
he's messing with stuff.
It's cool.
I was looking at something's computer to see movie.
Oh, okay.
You're good. I'm still listening. He was just messing with stuff, and it's like,
Anyway,
yes.
So basically, with all that, we got tired of waiting for our match to come up, essentially, which is the next part of the game, and we just started chatting back and forth, doing narrative role play back and forth in the chat box at the bottom of the site. And we created whole ridiculous worlds over the course of like several years. I helped lead him to Christ, and yeah, we just grew up and moved on from there. We still occasionally will even pick him up. He's probably about 8 or 9 years older than me, but we're still really good buddies. Any which way, point being that with that, I learned what you're talking about. It's not just the play, but it actually makes things easier. The play actually makes things easier. And that actually led me and my dyslexic brain to poetry. Poetry became a puzzle game. You figure out the next rhyme, you figure out the next rhyme, you figure out the next rhyme. I can create a general overview and like very few sentences, and you have this plain skeleton story, and then I can just and just go down the list. And because I'm so audio minded, I already have, even though I use rhyming dictionary like any good poet should, I use it probably half as much as like a normal person would, you know, just because I've got so many just sounds and references up in here. So that turned into something special too. And I think that's kind of the point of what we're all getting at here. It's kind of cool. You know, I always look for themes in the podcast to kind of give a preview of for posting it and everything. And it definitely seems like, yeah, it definitely seems like narrative play is kind of a major theme here in what I'm seeing in y'all's relationship and homeschoolers. And I think that's a whole world in and of itself, the narrative play world of homeschoolers, that just like, where do they get their social activity? Well, quite frankly, they've been 1,000-year-old witch in the woods before. You know what I'm saying? Like, they've been all these different things and these different characters, and it's completely trained them emotionally on how to deal with things.
Right. Yeah. I definitely 1,000-year witch thing. I just as soon as you said that, it's like yeah.
I could talk about all the different aspects of that. But let's see.
Narrative play, yeah, that's a big aspect of our relationship, because I'll send an idea and he won't, respond to it for a week or two, and then all of a sudden it's like, you remember that thing? What if it has implications over here that we don't and then our brains just explode like we just opened the Holy Grail or something. And it's great.
Yeah, I don't exactly of course I don't remember every detail of how everything's been. No. I'm just like, why do you expect to be able to do that? Okay. Man.
We're losing it.
I need to get my own mind on track.
It's okay.
Send a question our way or something.
Yes, because that's what I'm expecting right now.
I'm
really expecting a question. And I'm having to and right now I'm thinking of how to make one up that I can answer.
I guess I guess the big thing would be, we kind of grew up based on what I think y'all's age is. You might have been slightly after this, but in the, when I grew up, there was the Page Master, there was Reading Rainbow, there was a bunch of these shows that had a heavy emphasis on imagination. Adventures in Odyssey with the Imagination Station. There's all these other sorts of things where there was this huge emphasis on imagination. And I think obviously, in our world right now, we're kind of losing that. I think the public square is pushing that less and less because they're quite frankly working more toward worker drones, and that's a whole other topic that we can get into another time. But my point is, like, how would you guys go about, I guess, not just raising kids but watching kids? I know, Daniel, you're doing a few things on a bus these days.
But
what are some of the things that you can do to help foster that imagination and that creative spirit that we grew up with in children and just younger kids and younger adults even. I mean, what are some of the things you guys can do?
So like on the one hand, I do want to foster those same sorts of imaginations that, you know, spurred us on, made it really formative to us. But I also want to, there's so many in my generation that they went off the path, like we were talking about. They just went off the path. They're so many kids right now are wrestling with these ideas of objective truth, and they don't really sit well with just being told this is good because the Bible says so, or because you need to do it. So I want to encourage them. There's like actual reasons why we do certain things and we don't do certain things, and you kind of get what I'm getting at. I feel like I'm running out of words. The concept, it's just
we've talked about this before, and I think that the big thing is there is transcendent truth. It's not so much just objective, it's transcendent. There is something beyond ourselves that is constant and unchangeable. We see all this change and they want to say that everything changes, nothing matters. They want to go straight to Bohemian Rhapsody, right? You know what I'm saying? So like, the point that you're trying to make, from what I can tell and from what we've talked about before, is if you have a transcendent truth, you know what comes next in the story, both for you and for all your imaginary worlds. And you may not know exactly what it is, but you know the pattern, you know the creator, you know how the creator loves what he created, because you have something that you love that you created. Is that about what you're getting at?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like these things have a meaning. There is something behind it. There's something to it, because a lot of times, like, they just kind of, once they start growing up in the world, they don't have a basis for the things that they're imagining. They don't have a thing that's inspiring them, really. They're just sort of pulling things out of the ether. And I want to actually say, like, no, your imaginations can actually be directed and focused to the worship of our creator, because we have the ability to create things, and that mirrors the person who created us. That there's so much vibrance and beauty just to that. I run out of words, and I feel like I think 10 times faster than I can talk a lot of times. But if I write stuff down, it's really good. It tends to be really good.
So whenever it comes to me, I have thought a lot about questions of freedom, purpose, basically a lot of really philosophical questions. And I would like for a lot of my stories, of course, to be, be accessible to children. I just don't know exactly how good I'll be at that. But whenever it comes to the narrative message I think I'm trying to convey, what I want to show is that there is no story we write that is truly on its own. And our story and everything we do is part of a larger story that really matters. And so we have these ideas and desires to have a complete life. But the thing is, if you think about the most interesting stories, the most interesting characters, what is something that distinguishes Legolas from Aragorn, for example? What can Legolas do? He can shoot arrows, he can do a bunch of those kind of things, but Aragorn has a different set of skills. Frodo is the ring bearer, Sam carries him. What makes these characters interesting? It's the fact that they're different. And none of these characters make the complete story.
That's right.
And so what I want to show is that we cannot chase this desire to be, everything in a sense. We can't just seek to be completed. We need to realize that while we live here, we will be incomplete, but that's okay.
Right.
Because we're being brought into a story that is complete. And when we see it on the other side, that is what will fulfill us.
That's the body of Christ. That's the body of Christ analogy,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's kind of what I wanted to show with my own stories, both in how I write them, so on a meta level, and inside the stories themselves, is that the people that I am not complete. I can't make a complete work. None of these characters can be complete. None of this can be complete, but it's still part of something else that is.
Right.
Nothing is finished here, but it's part of something that is finished.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's something that Tolkien gets into in Leaf by Niggle. If you guys haven't read that, you should definitely give it a read. Fantastic read.
I've not read it, but I definitely know of it.
Yeah. I brought up The Page Master. This was a 1994 movie, I believe. Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone fame. And it also had Christopher Lloyd, Doc Brown himself in it. If you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing. It's a fun little, mostly animated kids film. But there's one particularly great part. This boy, give you a little bit of context. This boy gets lost in a library. He falls, he passes out, and ends up in a world of, for lack of a better term, Willy Wonka style, pure imagination. What it is it's all the different like books and things. He goes through, a horror section of the library with the Hounds of Baskervilles and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He goes through a fantasy land, and then he goes through a adventure land, and sees pirates and Long John Silver and all that other kind of stuff. Anyway, at the end, he fights a dragon, finally gets to the end, when he sees the Page Master himself, who is this keeper of the books and guardian of the written word, as he says, and so he's kind of this book wizard, and he says, he comes in and he says, "Hey, how'd you get here?" He's Macaulay Culkin yelling at the Page Master, "Hey, how'd you get here?" His buddies, his sidekicks who followed along, say, "Quit it, we're in the presence of the Page Master." He says, "I know who he is. He's the guy who did all this to me. Do you have any idea what I've been through?" Page Master says, "Tell me." He says, "I was nearly torn apart by a crazy doctor. I was made a slave by a bunch of mangy pirates and eaten. Got that? Eaten by a fire-breathing dragon." And then his sidekicks like apologize for him and all this other kind of stuff. And he says, "Not to mention being tossed, squashed, and scared practically to death." And then the Page Master says, "Yet you stand before me." He says, "Well, yeah. Think, boy, what kind of an adventure would you have had if I had brought you here with the turn of a page? You prevailed over evil. You look Moby Dick in the eye, boy. You had pirates tough, me lad." And he changes voices to the other characters who he met. "And no one speak any different. If I had brought you here from the start, you never would have found the courage to face your own fears. And in doing so, you triumph here and always." And so, yeah, the rest is about him coming out of his dream and going home. But that's exactly what you're talking about. And I don't make a Page Master reference very often. And so because I did in this podcast, I wanted to read you all that section. It has a great ending. It's a wonderful, beginning and ending. The middle's a little bit weird and 90s animated goofiness, whatever, but it's worth at least one watch, I'd say. So
okay. Yeah.
But yeah,
definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
So where can people find you guys on these wide internets these days?
Well, we haven't published a lot of our work, but I have released some of my own music.
Mm-hmm.
I have a channel named Realmless.
Okay.
I have made tunes for the Psalms, as well as an album of original music called The Beginning of Charity.
Is that on YouTube?
Yes, it's on YouTube.
Yep.
Okay.
It's not on any other platform, sadly. I have a bunch of old material on different channels related to maps, but what I'm looking forward to do soon, probably also on YouTube, is release the one of our stories in a serialized,
better not go into full detail.
Not full detail, and serialized manner over the internet. And I'm going to see how specifically to do that. Basically,
it's essentially a character I created
with a character I created,
and
there's how their stories cross.
Yeah, it's
sci-fi.
Yeah,
space opera.
Sounds good.
Space opera, more like contemplative sci-fi.
Yeah, and you can find me on. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of traction right now, but that's fine. I'm on YouTube as just Daniel Reed. It's the picture is a little kid with a Darth Vader mask. I'm in like I was like a 5-year-old at the time, and I was in my Sunday best, and after church I started playing, and I had a kind of a cockeyed Vader mask on, just sort of. And you can find me on TikTok. I gotta pull up my profile.
I'm actually trying to pull it up for you too.
Daniel,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's Daniel Reed 44.
Daniel Reed 44.
Primarily, I'm just posting. Yep. Right now, I'm just posting videos of me doing sign language mostly. I hope to branch out and do more stories and that sort of thing. But again, I like to collaborate with people. So we'll see where that leads.
All right.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
That is awesome. Stay on for just a second, guys. I'm just going to do a quick send off. You are in this war, whether you like it or not, whether you're an artist or not, but especially if you're an artist, be your family's bard. Press forward for the grace, the glory, and the honor of your Savior, Jesus Christ. This war isn't over, and no matter what, Christ has already won. We praise him for that, and we'll see y'all next time on Poets at War. God of song, said the warrior bard, though all the world betray thee, one sword at least I right shall guard, one faithful harp shall praise.